early 20th century and in the 19th century, they would refer to Muslims as Muhammadans. Muhammadans, which trying to make it seem like this is a cult around the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. Of course, Muslims don't call themselves Muhammadans. They call themselves Muslims. We definitely love and follow the Prophet Muhammad, but we do not deify him or put him to a divine status. So I know it didn't answer your question directly, but that's as much as I know, inshallah. So please feel free. It's our honor and our privilege to be able to share this with our neighbors and friends here in Austin. So please, you're more than welcome and most welcome to go ahead and get started, inshallah. So, yes, don't be shy. Bismillah. We start with the name of God. Yes. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. All right. So, just in the interest of time, I will get started, even if people are coming in and going out. We'll try our best to stay focused, inshallah. All right. So again, I begin with praise for God and peace and blessings be upon His prophets and messengers. We're looking at the universal perspective or the universal concept of Islam, seeing that it's something that is beyond a particular place, time, or even person, and it's something that is connected to the very essence of the self. So we talked about messengers, nature, and then the self. So the self is a very rebellious part of us for good reason, but at the same time, sometimes to our own disadvantage. And so the idea of the self becoming Muslim is that it is free from all vice. It's a very difficult process, of course. Free from malice, envy, etc. Then we say that that self has completely surrendered. And that's why we get the idea, no Muslim, no human being is going to say that they are perfect, that they can never make a mistake, that they are, So the idea is we are struggling, as Muslims even, to be better Muslims, right? So if a Muslim is doing something which doesn't represent their faith, deep down that person understands, I need to be a better Muslim. I need to, not because he's representing the faith, but because he understands or she understands that God expects more of them. And so this is the idea of the struggle to surrender, is to always refine the self, which is a big part of Islam as well. All right, so what are the three main principles then of the universal Islam? Before talking about the 5 pillars of practice and the 6 pillars of faith, there are 3 universal principles which all of the prophets and messengers of the one God all preach the same message. The Prophet, peace upon him, he described himself with the previous prophets and messengers as his brothers. He said, we have the same mother, we have different fathers. There's something to the effect, I don't know if it was the other way. I have to check that one, that reference. Meaning, they are all coming with one message. And that one message is crystallized in these 3 principles, which is, number 1, that God is one and transcendent. This is a universal message. Believe it or not, I was surprised. I was sitting on a panel, in an interfaith panel, with myself as a Muslim. There was a Jew, Christian, some other faith traditions. There was also someone representing the Hindu faith. And so the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jew were all talking about we're monotheists. And the Hindu speaker, he said, well, we're also in the essence monotheists too. And that way back our teaching is talking about there is a one God, but these are all these other gods are reflections of that one God. So we see that this is something which is ancient teaching, which is a true teaching, which is that God is one and He is transcendent. The second basic principle, which is more of an instruction, is to live a moral life. to do good and not to do evil. This is a very universal thing. If you look at the teachings, whether in Buddhism and Islam and Judaism and Christianity, in their origins, all of them are saying, do good, especially to your parents, especially to your neighbors, especially to the poor and the oppressed and those forgotten, and refrain from evil. I mean, it's a very basic message. And the third principle of universal or universalized Islam would be the idea of an afterlife. It's a consistent message that they're giving glad tidings and warning at the same time of what is to come. So this is the universalized sort of principles of Islam that is not concentrated or concretized in 7th century or 6th century Arabia, that this was actually just the last manifestation of that same flower that would blossom throughout history. Again, I need to work on my poetry. So, but this is really how we view Islam. That Noah was teaching Islam, that Abraham was teaching Islam. And just the latest and the last form is the one given to the last messenger to all of mankind, whose name was Muhammad. Peace and blessings of God be upon him and all of the prophets and messengers. So any questions about, I know it's difficult while you're eating, but any questions about the three principles of universal Islam? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yes. There are some very specifics in what's called the hadith, which are the specific sayings and teachings of Prophet Muhammad. There are specifics in the Quran, but not to the same level of the hadith in most areas. In the Quran, you can easily find verses which are almost word for word equivalent to the Ten Commandments. Not exactly word for word, but for example, I can think of one just offhand. It said, your Lord has decreed that you worship none except for Him, the first commandment, or in Jewish tradition, what they call the Shema. And then it said that you be good to parents, do not commit adultery, do not steal. All those kind of things you'll find very clearly. In terms of the golden rule, the closest saying that I can think of Prophet Muhammad to the golden rule, as I understand it from the Christians, would be that the Prophet, peace upon him, said, you do not really believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And so this is, it's a consistent message. In terms of the very specifics, for example, a Muslim doesn't eat this, or a Muslim cannot do this. That will vary. Same thing that in Moses, peace upon him's time, there was a specific law, what we call Sharia, way. In Jesus' time, there was a specific way, or Sharia. And also, as Muslims, we have accepted the final way, which was given to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, or the final path. Yeah. Yeah. So they're pretty consistent. The message of Islam is pretty consistent that this is wrong. In terms of individual Muslims or communities of Muslims, they can rise and fall just like any other human beings in terms of how much they live that teaching. And so, but it's still very consistent of what is right, what is wrong at a very basic level that everybody understands. In terms of the level of practice, that will vary from person to person and even from place to place, right? So, yes, sir. Okay.
Does God act in the world today? And is God in the Christian faith? God is said to be love, and to express that, is that in Islam also?
Okay. So the question was about nature. Does